The Trumpet Daily with Stephen Flurry.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the Trumpet Daily radio show. Thanks to Sam Livingston for filling in for me on yesterday's program. Comment here from one of our listeners who said, "Thank you, Mr. Livingston. We're proud of you. God's working with you in a big way. Thanks for your devotion to the production of the Daily." So we certainly do appreciate his support, as well as so many others on both sides of the pond who contribute to this program, not only for me, but for the subs that fill in from time to time as well. Well, tonight we've got our final rehearsal before the Celtic or Celtic throne. I'm a Boston Celtic fan, forgive me. And my kids tease me because half the time I say Celtic, but it's Celtic Throne, I've been told. Celtic Throne, that's the Sunday premiere. And that'll be an exciting program for sure, just judging by these past couple of rehearsals. The Tuesday night rehearsal was just electrifying, and tonight they'll make a few more tweaks here and there and give it one final run-through in preparation for the Sunday premiere. So we'll have a lot to say about that in the coming weeks. Of course, we have the online presentation of that a week from this Sunday. So that'll be July 5th, and you can register for that at the trumpet.com website. A couple more comments here from listeners. This one on the the trumpet brief that I sent out the other night. It says, "What an encouraging message you wrote, telling us to be bold and unafraid in this crazy world. Indeed, we're living in the last moments before Christ's return, no doubt, and everything seems hopeless physically, but what an enormous blessing to have the truth of God. I'm so thankful for God's truth, for the ministry, for God's family, and I continue to pray for you and the dedicated trumpet team for your diligent work." Another few comments here coming in from the social media sites. It says here, "Wow, love this channel, just stumbled on it." Another one writes, "This show helps make my day a little better, especially in these rough social times." And then this one writes, "Thanks for my breakfast food. Keep feeding us the Eternal's education. The truth is the light to this evil world." And then one last one. He writes, "When I saw the statue of George Washington come down, hot tears began to stream down my face, and I'm a Canadian living in the USA. I truly don't understand how anyone that has been taught by Mr. Armstrong cannot see where we are in prophecy today. It couldn't be more glaringly obvious that we're looking at these last few tiny fragments of time just before the Great Tribulation." So some feedback there coming from you, our listeners. And the statues continue to come down. There's quite the movement in Boston. I've been keeping my eye on that one because it's such a powerful statue of Abraham Lincoln with the Emancipation Proclamation of all things. And that's probably going to go. In Washington, D.C., President Trump has directed the National Guard to protect many of the monuments there. I told you about the statue of Andrew Jackson the other day. That was rescued just at the last minute. And so those who are just sitting back and watching this, the leaders, I mean, the ones that are more conservative, the ones that are maybe Republicans, that think it's just going to die out, well, there's no real sign of that happening. I said in that trumpet brief the other night, by the way, about just how this world has changed in this calendar year. Look at what's happened in the last 6 months. We're not even halfway through this year yet. And yet it is a different world that we're living in today. It's a different world, and it's not going to go back to the way that it once was. You can just, as I said the other night, you can just feel the hatred. You see the division on display every day, and it's a world filled with trouble. 2 Timothy 3 takes us through all that is prophesied for our time. My father, by the way, after he saw the first rehearsal for Celtic Throne, he told the crew, he told the performers, he told the musicians, the singers, He said, this is the program, this is the show that the world needs. This is the program that our nation needs at this moment. And you wish everyone in this country could see it. And see it live, by the way. The video, as good as that will be, it really doesn't do it justice. But to be in God's house, to be in Armstrong Auditorium, and to see it live, it's so powerful, it's so inspiring, it's so uplifting. There's these patriotic displays, an American medley in the second half of the program. Or Old Glory, the stars and bars waving in the background when Resurgence is going on. That too is in the second half of the show. In the first half, there's a Celtic flag that's I guess waved back and forth behind the dancers. It's very uplifting. You know, a couple weeks ago we talked a lot about history. This was even before we saw the rioting and some of the statues coming down. I guess this was a few weeks back. But you'll remember, so many of you sent in comments. We just talked about education and how different it is today. And some of you old-timers went back to what it was like growing up in an Ephraimite nation 50, 60, 70 years ago. And it's different today. Education, I found this morning. This is from someone that's, I think, about my age. But he writes, this is Eric Anderson, writing in Royal Vision back in 2008. He says, some of my earliest memories of grade school include my teachers inculcating within me a sense of national loyalty, pride, and patriotism connected with Independence Day. Here we're coming up to America's birthday. It'll be interesting to see how that's celebrated or how that's treated. I'm sure there's some states that'll go wild like usual. I'm sure they're going to be having fun with the fireworks here in Logan County. But what about in some of these cities where the flag is being burned? The flag is being ripped apart. Mr. Anderson writes here, I was taught genuine concern for our country and for our countrymen. During those years in the late 1970s and early 1980s, we started each school day with the Pledge of Allegiance and sang the national anthem at school assemblies. He says, we students became mindful of our unique national heritage and learned to appreciate the freedom and the blessings that have been bestowed upon America. So much of that pride in the nation, in the flag, in the national anthem, it's not there like it used to be, even just a few years ago. It's a different world. It's a different nation today. There was a local story here in Oklahoma, up in Tulsa. Tulsa's been in the news quite a lot this past week because of the president's rally from last Saturday night. And then this story in Tulsa, this soccer team, and it's a podunk soccer team. I don't think it's in the professional leagues. I think they play at a local park. But it's a big enough organization where, to this point, I guess, they've played the Star-Spangled Banner. They've played the national anthem before their games. And so this athletic director, he comes out yesterday, and, of course, the local media are right there to get his statements that he's decided to not play the national anthem before those soccer matches in Tulsa because, as he said, well, it's racist. It's racist. Evidently, there's the word slave in the third verse, which is not sung during the national anthem, by the way. But he said, hey, it's still there. And so the song is racist. It's outdated. It doesn't fit with the times we're living in. He's wearing his big rainbow T-shirt. I'm sure he's committed to support for Black Lives Matter. He's a committed Marxist, whether he realizes it or not. And here he says that the national anthem of the United States is racist. and a channel there in Tulsa is quite happy to tell his story. They picked it up here in Oklahoma City as well. I don't know if it made national news. I suppose it probably will. He's there saying, I hope other sports organizations will follow my lead. And of course, there's other voices saying that actually they wish that would happen just so that we don't have to watch all of these athletes take a knee. You know, you look back, as I say, even just a few years, it wasn't like this. Eric Anderson was writing there about his youth in the 1970s and 80s. That wasn't that long ago. They're replacing the national anthem with This Land Is Your Land by Woody Guthrie. He was famous back in the 1930s, and boy, I think you might want to look into his background. If we're going to be completely woke here, what about his political views? He's his family. What about his father? Well, leave that aside. The national anthem is racist. Back in 2002, I just noticed this yesterday. This is some feel-good history. History that's not that long ago. Following 9/11, of course, there was quite the patriotic display in the United States, in Congress, at athletic events. I think it was the Yankees, the New York Yankees, that were in the World Series that year, and I believe the president went to one of the games. The troops were off to Afghanistan at the last part of that year. And then in the early part of 2002, the Winter Olympics took place in Salt Lake City. Salt Lake City hosted the Winter Olympics. And at the start of that event, the opening ceremony, they brought out this flag that had flown above the World Trade Center. This was a flag that was buried under the rubble and shredded because of the attack on 9/11. And they found this U.S. flag, and they flew that ripped flag at Yankee Stadium during the World Series. And then they shipped it over to Salt Lake City so that it could be there at the start of the Winter Olympics in 2002. And just listen here to these announcers. These are, this is the media. Just 18 years ago. You can look at this scene. If you're just listening to the audio, maybe you can look at the YouTube feed later. It's quite a moving ceremony. Here's clip 2.
Ladies and gentlemen, the American flag that flew at the World Trade Center on September 11th is being carried into the stadium.
There is the flag that was buried in the rubble for 3 days, recovered, turned over to the National Guard for what was to have been a ceremonial destruction. Instead, a National Guard colonel gave it to Port Authority Police. Since then, it has flown at Yankee Stadium during the World Series, was featured in the Super Bowl pregame show. 8 U.S. athletes from different sports were selected by their teammates to carry it into the Olympic Stadium.
And they are surrounded by members of the Port Authority Police Department, the New York Fire Department, and the New York Police Department.
They're standing in Kandahar, Afghanistan.
They're standing in Kandahar. Nobody kneeling. Nobody kneeling at that ceremony. Bringing in this flag, ripped apart because of the attack on the United States. And they wanted to preserve this flag. And everyone sitting in that arena, well, you could hear it. It was dead silent. The respect the honor, 8 U.S. athletes, 8 athletes coming from all of these different programs, holding the flag of the United States, and everyone standing at attention. And then following that scene, you had this beautiful rendition of the national anthem, the Star-Spangled Banner, performed by the Mormon Tabernacle Choir and the Utah Symphony. And here is that. Again, this is from 2002, clip 3. That was 18 years ago, at a time when there was quite a lot more unity in the United States, people rallying around the flag, rallying around the national anthem, coming together. That was one symbol. The flag, the anthem, a symbol of unity. And today there are those that say it's racist. And that message is spreading. It's going to spread. When all the sports activities resume, you're seeing it already. In the Premier League and others, I'm sure, will soon follow. I saw a clip the other day, this movie, Miracle. You'll remember, some of you, Miracle on Ice back in 1980, coming out of the 1970s. This was a difficult time for the United States. And here again, the Olympics, you had people rallying around the Olympics, sports, the national anthem, the U.S. flag. And of course, the biggest story coming out of that competition was the U.S. hockey team that stunned the world. "Do you believe in miracles?" said the announcer as the U.S. beat the Russians. The Russians that had won the Winter Olympics, or the hockey tournament, I think, for 4 or 5 straight Olympics. And anyway, this clip from the movie was made, the event happened in 1980. The movie was made in 2004, and they're interviewing the actor that played Herb Brooks and the director, and both of them were saying just how important this history was, and how the flags were waving at those competitions, and how it stirred the nation. It brought the nation together. Could this ever happen again? In the world that we now live in, I was watching that clip from the movie 2004 and wondered if there would even be a movie like that produced. The movie's only 16 years old. It's one of my favorites. And yet it seems, in some ways, it seems like ancient history. Look at what's happened in just a few years' time, really, as I said in the trumpet brief the other night. Look at what's happened in just a few months. Look at the hatred. Look at the division. Look at some of these outlandish statements made on television for all the world to see. In 2015, London hosted the Rugby World Cup, and here again, if you're just listening to the audio, you need to watch this on the YouTube stream later to just see, this is the U.S. rugby team. They're singing the national anthem, for one, so you'll hear that, but to just see the expressions on the faces of these rugby players of all colors, as you'll see, and look at the passion. Look at the energy. Look at the enthusiasm. Look at the emotion that they had for their country's national anthem. This was just 5 years ago. Clip 4. My new favorite sport right there, rugby. Just some of the comments that were underneath this YouTube video. It says here, I'm living in Germany, but my ancestors were from the United States of America. I was never there, but my dad served in the U.S. military. Ever since I heard the Star-Spangled Banner for the first time, I felt something. It really touched my heart, and I cannot explain why. Now, growing up, I can fully understand the true meaning of the flag and the anthem. It's not about war or nationality. It's about being brave enough to fight for freedom. To fight for freedom. It's about banding together and standing tall against what's wrong. It's about free speech. It's about independence. And it's about compassion. That's coming from someone living outside the United States. Another one said, I may not be American, but I'm not ashamed to say that the U.S. national anthem is the most beautiful anthem of them all. This one says, I'm now an American, and this is my anthem. Another one from Britain writes, why do I feel proud of a country I'm not even from? Nice national anthem, America, from your friends over the water. These are all from, I think, 3 years ago. The comments are mostly from 3 years ago. The anthem was from 2015, the one you just saw there. Another one here says, this is the best and most patriotic version of this anthem I've ever heard. God bless America. I'm British, but every time I hear that our flag was still there, it gives me goosebumps. Another one commented, I'm neither an American nor live in the U.S., but I always stand for the Star-Spangled Banner. I love the USA so much, working on moving there, and I plan on staying there for the rest of my life. I'm through with this socialist freezer called Scandinavia. Another one here says, I love this national anthem. Every time I hear the words, tears well up inside. I'm not even an American, but I love the national anthem of the USA. Another one says, I love this national anthem. I'm not from the USA. I'm from Bosnia. And I promised to myself that I'm going to learn the Star-Spangled Banner. So I did it. And now I know the lyrics and how to sing this anthem. And every time I do it, I sing it loud. I think it's the best, the great country, the great nation. He says, I've never been to the United States. I would like to come to visit the USA if I ever get a chance. God bless the United States of America. Another one writes, Latino proud to be from the United States. Another one says, when a song can make a team of hardened rugby players cry, it's a good song. And then finally, this commenter says, I didn't know we had a rugby team. So, as is often the case with YouTube and other social media sites, people have some fun with it. But the love and the admiration, the praise for the United States, and this point has been made by a few, precious few, even today, the millions and millions of people who are dying to get into the United States, in some cases literally. They want to be here. They want to experience the freedom. They want to sing the national anthem. They want to stand before the flag. And today you're seeing more and more who are ripping that flag to shreds. Back in 2002, or following 9/11, they tried to put it back together. That one that had been shredded in the terrorist attack. Now you have these thugs burning flags over statues of founding fathers that they're pulling down. These are products, these people, these are products of modern education. This springs from education, and even before that, it springs from a complete and total family breakdown. That's what we're seeing. Someone sent me this quote from our child rearing booklet. This is a booklet that we have at the trumpet.com website. But it says here, imitation is a potent tool for parents to produce positive and permanent results in child rearing. Children imitate, in other words. They imitate behavior that they see. Parents must recognize their weighty responsibility to set the right example for their children. It says here, it should be immediately clear to all parents how destructive imitation can also be. Parents who are rowdy, argumentative, and continually emotionally upset should not be surprised when their children are rowdy, argumentative, and given to temper tantrums and angry emotional outbursts. Isn't it logical that parents with bad table manners, unkempt and unclean personal habits, criminal behavior, including resentment toward law and authority, laziness, and coarse language, are exerting a powerful influence over their children to develop these same habits? It says the imitative impulse in children is so strong that it is the leading cause in the development of many child criminals. Parents, it says, take warning. Criminal behavior is learned behavior. This is what so many of these youths are learning at home, in school, at the university. That article from Royal Vision in 2008 talking about what it was like being in school in the late 70s, early 80s. Some of you that have written about school in Australia back in the 1950s, 1960s. Our nations are under attack. They are under attack. Satan wants to blot them out, as we've been saying. He wants to blot out the history. He wants to blot out the founders. He wants to blot out the flag, the anthem, the royalty, the queen. And he's having quite a lot of success. And few people, precious few, are willing to take a stand, courageously take a stand against the mob. Well, there's a fair bit of other news that we have to get to on today's program, and we'll come to that when we come back. You're listening to the Trumpet Daily with Stephen Flurry. We'll be right back.
This is KPCG-FM, and this is the Trumpet Daily.
A turning point in recent history has gone almost entirely overlooked. Since that time, an unseen cause has brought about national and world troubles in unprecedented fashion. Crises are intensifying as never before. In our generation, we are seeing radical changes to culture, family, education, religion, science, finance, politics, international relations. Everything has been affected. You cannot understand events without recognizing this unseen cause. The United States has been shaken in astonishing fashion. Have you wondered why the world's #1 superpower is declining so rapidly? Are you concerned about where the current administration is leading this country? The Bible provides penetrating insight into the invisible cause of society's decline. America is prophesied to fall before it rises again. The Bible also gives extraordinary insight into how that fall will come about. This insight puts the seriousness and urgency of current events in their true perspective. Understand what's in store for America and why. Visit thetrumpet.com and click on the Literature tab to request this free, enlightening booklet, America Under Attack.
The Trumpet Daily.
Yesterday, a court of appeals in Washington, D.C., ruled against this judge that wanted to continue going after General Mike Flynn, the one who was targeted by the Obama administration during that transition from 2016 to 2017, that transition from Barack Obama to President Donald Trump. The DOJ a while back said, hey, we're going to drop these charges. And then the judge says, no, we're going to try to keep this going. We're going to go ahead and go after General Flynn. And yesterday, to their credit, this appeals court said, no, you've got to let this go. Now, there is, I guess, I forget the name of is it Sullivan? Yeah, Judge Sullivan. I guess he still could protest this or maybe appeal it, but it looks like it's finally over. It was nice to hear from General Flynn, who's been pretty quiet over the last 3.5 years that he's been under attack. But yesterday he took to the airwaves. He called in on several radio programs and even thanked hosts and thanked their listeners. It seems like his trial is finally over. Persecution, as President Trump called it. Here's how the president responded to this yesterday. Clip 6.
Very happy about General Flynn. He was treated horribly. He was treated very, very horribly by a group of very bad people. And I think you'll see things are going to start to come out. But what happened to General Flynn should never happen again in our country. He was persecuted, and many other people were persecuted. They spied on a campaign. And they should never spy on a campaign, to put it mildly. It never happened before in the history of our country. The Obama administration spied on a campaign. This is just the first one. He's been exonerated, and I want to congratulate him. He's been through a lot. He had great courage, great fortitude, but they spied on a campaign. There's never been anything like that happen. If that were the other way around, people would be in jail for 50 years already.
If it was the other way around, that's for sure. He keeps in mind the big picture. He's the only one that will do this. The media won't do it. The president, I mean. He says the Obama administration spied on the campaign, my campaign. and then targeted individuals like Mike Flynn, who didn't do anything wrong. The president also tweeted yesterday, is James Comey, is he going to apologize? Are any of them going to apologize for ruining this man's life, for ruining his career? He came in as the national security advisor. He was there for a few days, and that's it. And they took him out. Yesterday, well, coinciding with this. And really the reason this is so important is because it's like the president said there, it's like a sidebar to the bigger scandal, which is that they were trying to destroy Donald Trump. They still are, of course. They've tried everything. Even to this point, they've used the virus. They've used the rioting. They've used the George Floyd killing as a pretext to destroy. As I say, coinciding with this yesterday, you have the revelation that, again, more detail on that January 5th meeting, January 5, 2017, and how much Barack Obama not only knew, but what he ordered, what he told his dirty cops to do. And they carried out his orders. This is from the Federalist. Newly released notes confirm President Barack Obama's key role in surveillance and leak operation against Michael Flynn, the incoming Trump administration national security advisor. It says the handwritten notes, which were first disclosed in a federal court filing made by the Department of Justice on Tuesday, show President Obama himself personally directed former FBI Director James Comey and former Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates to investigate Flynn. He told them to. Now, these are notes put together by Peter Strzok, who evidently wasn't in the meeting, but he wrote it down from Jim Comey. So Comey's in the meeting with Yates, with Obama, with Biden. They're all talking about President Trump and General Flynn and the phone call that he had with the Russian ambassador Kislyak. And on those notes, I forget who said it, but they basically said the call's legit. You know, there's nothing to it. There's no violations here. So they were looking for ways. They were looking for ways to go after Flynn. Joe Biden suggested the Logan Act. You might remember from a few months ago, he said he knew nothing about the investigation into Mike Flynn, and then he corrected himself a little bit later in the same interview. They were all there. They were all discussing it. The Federalist says the handwritten notes from fired former FBI agent Peter Strzok appear to describe a January 5th, 2017 Oval Office meeting between Obama, Joe Biden, Comey, Yates, and then National Security Advisor Susan Rice. The meeting and its substance were confirmed in a bizarre Inauguration Day email Rice wrote to herself. That was the email where she said, hey, we just did it by the book. We did it all by the book. Well, these handwritten notes suggest that they were searching for a way to take out Flynn because they didn't have anything on him. So they were eavesdropping. They were spying on him and others. And President Trump yesterday made sure to emphasize the fact that this was an outgoing administration that was spying on fellow Americans, that was using these powerful government agencies, the DOJ, the FBI, the IRS, all of them, to go after political opponents. President Trump at his rally last week commented on these people and how sick they are. This is clip 7.
These people are sick to fake news.
He's talking there specifically about the media, but they're all in bed together. It's the Democrat media complex. They're sick people. Here you have a former president and his vice president plotting to sabotage his successor, plotting to sabotage his political opponent. It seems like that would be a huge story And yet the media, they are totally disinterested in this. Did you hear much about it yesterday? Well, maybe if you watched a little bit of Fox News, you did. Or if you listened to a little bit of talk radio. But if you're at CNN, if you're reading the Washington Post, if you're reading the New York Times, nothing. Nothing to see here. An outgoing president of the United States, together with his vice president, who's now running for president. And they're sabotaging the incoming administration, plotting a political coup, plotting to overthrow his successor. It seems like that would be newsworthy. Instead, the media, they're concerned about, as the president said there, fake news. Look at the way they went after this story from last weekend. Bubba Wallace, the NASCAR driver, he's half black, and last weekend he goes into his garage, and he doesn't even see it himself, I don't think. It's one of the guys on his team that said, hey, there was a noose in here. And immediately, it's a scandal. Wallace said that this display was a despicable act of racism and hatred. It left him incredibly saddened and serves as a painful reminder of how much further we have to go as a society and how persistent we must be in the fight against racism. And then the FBI announced right away that they were going to investigate this as a hate crime, a potential hate crime. They actually sent 15 agents to Alabama to look into this. You talk about a double standard. Now, I know the president has come out and said, hey, he's stood against it. He's shown some courage, as I said earlier this week. And we have an attorney general now that says he wants to uphold the law. But when you look at this, just even the focus of the FBI to send 15 agents, even as statues are being pulled down and ruined and destroyed. Some of those people, I suppose, are prosecuted. Most are let go. But here someone comes forward and says, hey, I think there's a noose in here. And that sure gets the attention of the FBI, so much so that they commit 15 agents to it. Everybody ran with the story. Bubba Wallace, you heard his statement, his team. Everyone at NASCAR, they had that big scene on Monday where they're all pushing the car of Bubba Wallace in a show of solidarity. We've got to eliminate racism. Racism in NASCAR. And then the media, for their part, the coverage. Grabian put together this montage, clip 12.
NASCAR is investigating a horrible incident.
A horrifying, racist, jarring, disturbing,
Heinous, perverted,
ugly,
cowardly,
dreadful,
hateful,
stunning, shocking, appalling, disgusting reminder of who, again, this sport is for.
A noose found in the garage stall of Bubba Wallace.
Obviously, this is completely appalling, but do you think it's surprising?
No, it's not surprising at all.
And NASCAR is often considered a sport that is tethered to white folk, tethered to the South.
The Confederate flag in a sport that is overwhelmingly white and certainly dominant among Southerners.
And NASCAR has been trying to somewhat move away from it. And I say somewhat in kind of air quotes.
They were going to remove Confederate imagery. To think that that's going to happen in a span of 2 weeks after all that NASCAR has been for all of its existence is foolish. I mean,
my cynicism and sadness is that it's just not shocking to anybody.
As much as NASCAR may try to distance itself from that, it's a living, breathing part of their sport.
We need to understand that racism continues to be the underbelly of American society.
I mean, that this happens in the year 2020 is just beyond belief.
Let's just remember that until the last 2 weeks, NASCAR endorsed and embraced this sort of performative racism week in and week out by embracing and wrapping itself in the Confederate flag.
That's just from a couple of days earlier this week. Yesterday, the FBI announced, or this might have been, I wasn't on the show yesterday, it might have been the day before, The FBI has completed its investigation at Talladega Superspeedway and determined that Bubba Wallace was not the target of a hate crime. The FBI report concludes, and photographic evidence confirms, that the garage door pull rope, fashioned like a noose, had been positioned there since the early part of last fall. This was obviously well before the 43 team's arrival and garage assignment. It says, we appreciate the FBI's, this is from NASCAR, we appreciate the FBI's quick and thorough investigation and are thankful to learn that this was not an intentional racist act against Bubba. But you'd never know it, judging by the appalling coverage. Very similar, by the way. A similar reaction to the mayor. I think it was in a California town, wasn't it? She walked by a tree with a rope hanging and said, there's a noose. There's a noose there. So now they're searching the country far and wide for nooses. And you would think if it was systemic, you would think it'd be easier to actually find a noose. But no, it's the garage door pull rope. And the media, how disgusted they were. And it's nothing. It's a non-story. It's fake news. Took a while for Bubba to even fess up to it. He still was saying, I know what I saw. Up until he finally made a statement saying, well, I'm glad it wasn't a racist act. I think Al Sharpton, though, he still believes. He still believes. Even when the evidence is in. They just know. Well, it's systemic, right? The same people, the same administration that targeted General Flynn, that to this day is going after Donald Trump. They were also behind that racism in the DNA. That's the new America, the way they view it. The flag, the anthem, the founders, the statues, the history, all of it. It's racist. And so it needs to be destroyed. It needs to be destroyed. And of course, the destruction, the violence, it's all justified. Listen to this Black Lives Matter representative yesterday. I think this was on Fox News, clip 5.
I watched you, talking on a bunch of different interviews today, and you said, burn it down. You said, burn it down. It's time. So that makes me think that you want to burn it down.
I said, if this country doesn't give us what we want, then we will burn down this system and replace it. All right. And I could be speaking figuratively. Okay. I could be speaking literally. It's a matter of interpretation. Like, let's be very real. And let's observe the history of the 1960s. When black people were rioting, we had the highest growth in wealth, in property ownership. Think about the last few weeks. Since we started protesting, there have been 8 cops fired across the country. You remember they were telling us that there was due process. That's why the cop that choked Eric Gardner to death kept his job and received raises for 5 years. Anytime a cop hurt a woman, hurt a child, hurt pregnant people, hurt our elders, there was always a call for due process. You must wait. You must wait. But the moment people start destroying property, now cops can be fired automatically. What is this country rewarding? What behavior is it listening to? Obviously not marching.
Obviously not marching. That's the Black Lives Matter movement. Their proud representative saying marching doesn't work, but violence does. Violence produces. You think he's going to be penalized for that statement that he made on national TV? You think he's going to lose his job? No, you've got to fly a banner across a stadium in the UK for about 60 seconds. A banner with no profanity, nothing. You do that, you lose your job. You're banned for life from that sporting event. Your wife loses her job. Now you need to be penalized because that's disgusting. That's like the noose hanging in Bubba Wallace's garage. Somebody's got to pay for that. This man, as you just heard there, he gets up on national television and says marching doesn't work, but violence does. Violence really produces. Violence brings change. Who is going to stand up to this? Who is going to stand up and say enough? It's going to take some courage. And great again, my father says, in the face of such problems, our people have become faint-hearted, too cowardly to do what needs to be done. We are afraid of almost everything, it seems, because we don't know God and don't let him empower us and give us the courage we need. We won't let God give us the courage we need. We need God to give us courage. We need God to strengthen our faith. We need God to stand up for the truth, to stand up for law and order. We need God to give us the courage to speak his words, not ours, his. What's God's position? What does God think? Joel Hilliker had a trumpet brief last night, by the way, where he talked about the leftists and how that they love both anarchy and authoritarianism. It's an excellent brief. He sent it out last night. It'll be at the trumpet.com website today. What a year this has been. The authoritarianism with the COVID-19, and then now the anarchy. Bring down the system. Marching doesn't work, says Black Lives Matter. Let's destroy. And this is the organization we're bowing before? This is the organization we take a knee in front of? Isaiah 40 in verse 9 says, O Zion, O you that brings good tidings to Zion, get you up into the high mountain. O you that brings good tidings to Jerusalem, lift up your voice with strength. Lift up your voice with strength. It says, lift it up. Be not afraid. Say unto the cities of Judah, behold your God. God says, don't be afraid. Fear God. Fear God. Don't be afraid of what men might do. Fear God. Proclaim his truth. Finish the work that God's given to us. If God gives us a mission, if God gives us a message, we can't be afraid. We have to speak the truth. And that stands out in a world where Satan is its God. And as the Bible says, there is no truth in him. There's no truth in the devil. And so it takes courage to speak what God wants for us to speak. You're listening to Stephen Flurry, and this is the Trumpet Daily Radio Show. If you'd like to submit some feedback, you can write us at td@kpcg.fm. We thank you for joining us on today's show, and we'll see you tomorrow.